We're gonna hit that a nice little stir. I'm gonna turn the stove off, and I am going to allow it to sit for about 4 or 5 minutes before serving, because I want that cilantro to work a little magic. I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Yeah, I like using olive oil. If you like using coconut oil or vegetable oil, that sort of thing, I mean to say, yeah, you do that. Medium flame, as I said. Half of a medium onion that I diced up. I'm going to turn my heat down to low, because I want to add some garlic in there, and that is about 6 cloves of garlic. If you have more and you like garlic, by all means, this is a great way to enhance this dish even more, is a ton of garlic. Speaking about enhance, I have some cumin or jeera seeds, and right away we're going to go in with some fresh ground black pepper. With the heat on low, we're just going to let that sweat down for about 2 or 3 minutes. We are not trying to burn the garlic, and that is why there's a ton of onion in there. It's going to keep things nice and cozy, and we're going to pull out a lot of flavor from the cumin or the jeera seeds. Got some lovely brown edges happening on the onion and the garlic. So here's where we're going to crank things up just a little bit more. I've got a heaping 2 heaping tablespoons of my homemade Caribbean green seasoning. You can check out CaribbeanPot.com for that recipe. And as I always do with all the recipes that I share with you, I try to tell you, well, break things down. Caribbean green seasoning is basically a blend or a puree of all the herbs we like using, and we keep it in the fridge. And you know, there's also a ton of garlic in there and seasoning peppers, and the herbs in here is shadow benny, which is culantro. I've also got cilantro, parsley, quite a bit of scallion in there, quite a bit of thyme, quite a bit of what else do I have in here? Certainly not basil. I don't like basil, so basil never makes it in there. I'm not a fan of rosemary, so rosemary doesn't make it in there. Oh, Spanish thyme along with your typical French thyme. I'm just going to cook that down here. I'm going to turn my heat up now to medium, because I want to pull out a ton of flavor from that Caribbean green seasoning. And you know, you keep it in the fridge or the freezer, and you know, you make little ice blocks out of it, and whenever you're ready to cook a thing, you pull it out. If you've been following me for a while here on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, wherever you're watching this, you know I like tomato whenever I do curries, and the reason, well, 2 reasons. It helps with creating that lovely gravy that I like, plus the acidity helps to balance off all the flavors. So again, if you're not into the tomato in your curry, don't do that, but I'm on rocking it. It's been a couple minutes since I added the Caribbean green seasoning to there. So here's where now we're going to go in, and you know, you can use your favorite curry powder. I am using my own blend, and we're going to, you know, continue that medium heat and let this cook down for just about 3 or 4. You'll start seeing the bottom of the pan will start having that fond on the bottom there. That is exactly what we want. Your kitchen should be smelling just incredible, because what we did there is a sort of a wet toast using the oil as the mechanism to pull out all the flavors of the spices which makes up the curry powder. Heat still on medium, and notice it went darker as well. I know I have quite bright lights above the camera here, so maybe it doesn't show as dark as it is in real, but water. What we're doing in this step here now is cooking out the rawness of the curry. And the whole idea here is to burn off all that liquid. So if you need to crank up the heat, you can crank up the heat. I'm leaving it on medium, and I want it to go about 5 or 6 minutes, because I really want to cook out things. Go to your local Caribbean grocery store, get some anchar masala. I think you can get it on the Amazon as well too. And you know, check CaribShopper.com. We gotta support we own, you know what I mean? So I went in there with about a tablespoon of that, and that has a lot of roasted cumin in there as well. So we have the cumin seeds. and that anchor masala will have some of that in there as well, along with other things. So again, we're going to cook this down, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you create the perfect seasoned curry base. You notice we start seeing the oils floating on top that we started off with there. My Caribbean green seasoning is made with olive oil as my base. I don't use water nor vinegar, so that is why it's a little bit oily. One of the things to look for in knowing if it's ready, besides seeing the oil and the separation, just look at this separation here. Notice how I can create, yeah, I'm trying to piss nobody off here, but it's like Moses and the Red Sea. Just look at it. Boom. Straight across. So we've got that lovely base there. Now, had you started with coconut oil instead of that olive oil, you would get a lovely flavor from that coconut oil in there. Here's where now, and the reason why I wanted that 2 tablespoons of olive oil plus the oil from the Caribbean green seasoning is because I am using pork tenderloin, which is very, very lean. But if you want to cut back on the amount of oil that you used, what I would recommend using is a non-stick pan. This way you can cut back on the amount of oil, because you know how we sort of fry the curry at the start there. That sucks up a lot of oil, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, I'm using pork tenderloin, as I said, and I cut it up about 3/4 of an inch thick. I'm only using pork tenderloin because that one was on sale. Tough time, dry guava season, so you're trying to use what's on sale. Yeah, I'm just gonna put the lid on there, and I'm gonna let that go for about 10 minutes or so. In the meantime, go ahead and peel your potatoes. And I'm trying to stretch this dish for quite a few people, so yeah, we're doing curry pork with potato. Yeah, you're not seeing things. That pork sprouted up all of that liquid. Hold on, let me go inside and show you what I'm talking about. You notice how much liquid is there? Yeah, with the lid on, that's what's gonna happen. So, small thing, what we need to do now is crank up the heat to high. We want to burn off all that liquid, and in that process, we're gonna infuse the pieces of pork with that lovely curry base that we created there. Now, you can use any cut of pork that you want. I kind of wanted to say that earlier there. Any cheap piece of pork, that is, because we're gonna braise this down. Burn off all that liquid, lid off, and then we're gonna, introduce the potato. So it'll take a few minutes. You can see all that liquid is gone, and what we've got here is just pure, unadulterated niceness. Potato, big and bold, yeah, big pieces. And I like cutting it up big, because here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna put water in here, and we're gonna braise this, because I want this pork tender. Give that a good stir, and we are missing a few things. We did talk about liquid, and that liquid is going to be complements of water to braise this and get it nice and tender. And as it cooks, that potato is going to break down. But I still want some integrity of the potato later on when we're eating. If you wanted to use coconut milk, I would do half coconut milk, half water. I really wouldn't go with the whole chicken stock or vegetable stock and stuff like that, unless that's your thing. I don't want to taint my curry. And I'm not a huge fan of coconut in curry either. Salt. We didn't do salt yet. A good pinch, well, that's not a pinch. We've got about 3/4 tablespoon of salt in there, because we've got quite a bit of potato and pork. Piece of ginger, some fresh thyme. Yeah, we have thyme in the green seasoning, but I like repeating the sort of elements as I go along. And water, as I said. You just want to cover everything with water, so I'm looking anywhere from 6 to 8 cups of water. We're going to bring that up to a boil. Then we're going to reduce it to a sort of a rolling boil. Tuck all the potato below the water. Everybody nice and cozy in there. If you wanted to put a bay leaf in here, you can rock a bay leaf in here. If you want to repeat some of that Caribbean green seasoning, you can certainly do that. My lid is going on there. I'm going to bring it up to a boil, and then we're going to reduce it down to a rolling boil with the lid slightly ajar, and we're going to cook that until everything is nice and tender and we got a nice thick gravy. Now you would have noticed no Scotch bonnet pepper, no habanero, nothing hot and spicy went in there. If you want Scotch bonnet pepper in there, by all means, drop a Scotch bonnet pepper in there. Later on I will add some pepper and I'll explain why I add it later on. The other thing, if you wanted to, you can add a stick of cinnamon in here. It's been going for just over an hour and 10 minutes. And as you can see, the potato is starting to fall apart. Those sprigs of thyme has done its job. I'm just going to remove it. If you wanted to remove your stick of cinnamon, if you use the bay leaf, all those things you can remove at this point. If you're able to find, and that is why I have that piece of ginger as a thick slice. So at this point, if I wanted to remove it from the pot, I can do that. Taste it for salt. Now keep in mind, when this cools down, it will thicken up considerably. So I'm just going to give this another couple minutes. Make sure your pieces of pork are nice and tender. If you use something other than, as I mentioned earlier, I use pork tenderloin. It may take a few minutes more than pork tenderloin. One final little stir, because I know this is going to thicken up quite a bit as it cools down. I'm going to grab some of this. The salt is perfect. Sup, soldiers? Listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me. Email address down here. I'm trying to tell people the email address, them butts will take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at Caribbean Pot. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irene? Yeah, if you recall earlier, we spoke about the Scotch bonnet and the habanero, whatever sort of spicy pepper you want to put in here. I didn't, remember? So at this point is where I have these fine wee wee peppers. And they have a nice little punch to them, a nice little kick to them. I'm adding it here just before I turn off the stove. The reason being is, if anyone who's eating likes it spicy, what they can do is fish when they portion for themselves. They can grab a pepper or two and then crack it open on their plate and then boom, enjoy it. This way, not everybody's affected by that raw heat. The last thing I like doing, and you guys know I love cilantro. If you have shadow benny, unfortunately, Uncle Chris is in Canada, and right now I ain't really getting the shadow benny that I want. Yeah, we're gonna hit that a nice little stir. I'm gonna turn the stove off, and I am going to allow it to sit for about 4 or 5 minutes before serving, because I want that cilantro to work a little magic. Let's look at that niceness now. Nice tender pieces of pork, nice thick gravy. Oi! Uncle Chris eating, hey, like a champ tonight. Anyhow, I hope I'll give this recipe a try. Curry pork with potato.